Wonderful, wonderful. I'm among friends for sure. And a lot, too. Wow. You know.
What's up, North Carolina? I'm Rob Yates, your friendly neighborhood communications director, here to welcome you back for yet another mind-blowing episode of Liberty Inc., your source for all things liberty in our great Tar Heel state. This past weekend was the 2024 Libertarian National Convention, and that voice you just heard? A clarion call for sanity amidst a cacophony of chaos, the legend himself, Ron Paul. Hashtag End the Fed. The great Ron Paul delivered one of many fine speeches at the convention this year, an ethereal moment in a weekend marked by highs, lows, and all the madness in between. One moment, though, stood out when North Carolina's own Dan Johnson and Sarah Brady, well, let's take a look.
Meantime, Dan Johnson, could you come up front because we need you just for a second? Everybody hang tight and please be respectful. Mics will stay off. Dan Johnson, where are you from? Is it South Carolina? Okay. North Carolina. Dan Johnson from North Carolina. We're just, if I could have everyone's utmost, most sincere attention and absolute deathly silence. Very, very quiet, because I have something really important to announce. Thank you guys so much.
At the 2018 New Orleans convention, I met my current partner, Sarah Brady. The first 2 years, we had several arguments because I was more of a right libertarian and she was more of a left libertarian. But we've kind of come around on that. We've had two beautiful children together, Alexander Isaac and Leonidas Valentine. You always think a lot about what the right moment, who the right people are, who do you want around you when you make important life decisions. And the family that we've had, and really the only family I've ever had outside of my immediate family, is libertarians, is you guys. And I don't know what that says about me, but, we can leave that to that. So I would like to call my beautiful partner, Sarah Brady, up to the stage, please. Yeah. The light of my life and actually smarter than me. You could join me on stage, please. We have been together. We have been through hard times and good times together. And today, in front of all of our friends, I don't know if I can kneel and bring the microphone down. Sarah Brady, would you officially, publicly marry me?
Yes.
Spike Cohen brought the heat like he always does, and we'll show that in a minute. But first on this episode, we get some highlights from our venerable chair, Ryan Brown, and our intrepid governor candidate, Mike Ross, as they dominated the show at the Pints in Politics Rise of the Third Parties event. Then, we are stoked for our guest, the enigmatic Shelane Etchison. She is an independent running for Congress in North Carolina's 9th District, and she did it gathering signatures. While she isn't registered as a Libertarian, just listen and make up your own mind. Then, as always, Dub and Groo talk sports, starting with a special shout out to my daughter's high school soccer team, 1A State Champs. Remember to click like and subscribe. Now, let Spike's prophetic wisdom open your mind.
How's everyone doing? I hate to briefly interrupt that. That seemed like a tremendous amount of fun, so I apologize for that in advance. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you guys for being a part of this. As fun as it is, it's still something that deserves thanks. 4 years ago, this party granted to me the second greatest honor of my life. The first greatest honor, of course, was when my wife-to-be Tasha said "I do" in front of me, a priest or a pastor, a rabbi, and several hundred witnesses, thereby proving that it was indeed not just a phase. But the second greatest honor of my life was bestowed upon me by you guys when you nominated me to be your vice presidential candidate. I haven't stopped fighting to spread liberty since, and I hope I'm serving you well. I hope I'm doing you proud. 2 years ago in Reno, I stood in front of you, well, not here in Reno, but like this, and I encouraged everyone that no matter who won and no matter who lost, that we stop trying to create a duopoly within this party, that we drop the fighting at least in between the elections, and that we work together to fight for liberty. And as we all know, that is exactly what happened. Thank you. No, that's the funniest thing you'll hear today. No, listen, guys, this is a crucial moment for the Libertarian Party. Yes, we are picking our leadership and we're picking our candidates for 2024, but it's more than that. We are answering some existential questions here. What is the purpose of the Libertarian Party? What is the future of the Libertarian Party? Do we even have a future? Now, I believe that we do have a future. In fact, I'll go even further than that. I believe we have to have a future because we're the only ones who understand this. We're the only ones who get it. There isn't a single other candidate or political party in this country who understands the real problem that America is facing. And even with the best of intentions that they may have, if you don't understand the problem, you're only going to make it worse. We are necessary. Now, as some of you may have heard, Donald Trump spoke to our delegates last night. I don't know if you caught that. And he made a lot of promises that were promises of things that we liked. He also said a lot of things you didn't like, but you already let him know that. One of the biggest promises he made, in my mind, was to free Ross Ulbricht. And I am very glad that happened. Even if he didn't actually do it, he just made that mainstream, which also makes it more politically expedient, and it means it's much more likely to happen. But gosh, if only there were some way for us to know what Donald Trump would actually do if he were to actually get elected president. My goodness. When he promises to drain the swamp, if only there was some way we'd know if he'd actually do that, or if instead he'd make it bigger and more powerful and more costly than ever before. You know, hypothetically. If only when he promises to fight the deep state, we had some way of knowing if he actually meant that, or what if he actually meant was that he was going to stand side by side with Anthony Fauci while they told us 15 days to slow the spread, and then a couple weeks later tell us 30 days to slow the spread, and then for the next several months complain about Fauci while simultaneously signing every bill that Fauci needed to have more power and more control than ever before while he forced the states into lockdowns and censored all of us. You know, hypothetically. If only when he promises to protect our right to keep and bear arms, we had some way of knowing if he was actually going to do that, or if instead what he was going to do is say, take the guns first, due process later, support red flag laws and bump stock bans and suppressor bans and everything else, because the liberal media scared him into doing it. If only when he says he's going to get Washington's financial mess under control, what he actually meant was that he was going to sign the largest spending bills in history, even to this day, passing on massive amounts of inflation to us now and passing on to future generations untold amounts of debt with interest to have to pay off. If only when he says America first, we had some way of knowing if he actually meant that, or if he actually meant the government first and the military-industrial complex second and big pharma third and the Israeli government fourth and the Saudi Arabian government fifth and the American people sometime long after that. You know, hypothetically. Listen, in 2016, Donald Trump ran on three main promises that libertarians liked. He was going to drain the swamp, he was going to eliminate the national debt, and he was going to lock up Hillary Clinton. Now, we're in the swamp right now, and it's murkier than ever before, and it grew by leaps and bounds under Donald Trump. Not only did he not eliminate the national debt, he ran up $8 trillion of debt. He almost beat Barack Obama's debt record. He did it in one term, he almost did it. And as you know, instead of locking her up, he locked us down. That is what this party is up against. And as you also may know, the day before, Bobby Kennedy came here and spoke to us. His speech went a little bit better. But, you know, I'm glad that Bobby Kennedy's running. I'm glad that he's running, and I'm glad that Americans have as many choices as they can have to vote for. And frankly, Bobby said quite a few things that we agree with. He's also said that gun rights groups are terrorist organizations. And he has said that people who deny climate change should be prosecuted. And he has said that the government should subsidize home mortgage prices. And he said that government-funded colleges should use race-based quotas, and a lot of other things we disagree with. But honestly, all of that pales in comparison to what he said to the California Libertarian Party convention earlier this year, where he called privatization a sin and a crime, and said that the sure sign of a society's collapse is decentralization of government power and the privatization of government-run property. I want to be very clear about something. And again, I'm glad Bobby's running, and I love a lot of what he has to say. Bobby Kennedy is not a fellow traveler who just happens to get it wrong on a few things. Bobby Kennedy is someone who is openly hostile to the precepts of libertarianism, and he happens to get it right on a few things. That is what we are up against. And as you know, Joe Biden is also running for president. He may not know that he's running for president, but Joe Biden knows that he's running for president. Now, I have put together this comprehensive list of bad things that Joe Biden has done. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Here we go. Excuse me. Sorry, this will only take a moment. Virtually every single thing Joe Biden has done in his entire life. Here we go. That's compelling. It's a compelling argument. This is what the Libertarian Party is up against. Now, there are other people running as well. You have Cornel West and Jill Stein and the Unicorn Lady and quite a few others. And it's good that these people are running. And again, many of them are saying things that we like. But I want to be very clear about something. Every single one of them, Trump, Kennedy, Biden, all of them have the same thing in common. They think that the problem with our government is that the wrong people are in charge doing the wrong things. And once the right people are in charge doing the right things, there's no limit to how big and expensive and intrusive in your life they want it to be. We are the only ones who understand what the founders knew over 200 years ago. The problem with the government is the government. The government is a monopoly of authority, a self-imposed monopoly of authority that is financed with extortion and enforced with violence and threats of violence. It's a protection racket with a flag and a theme song. And the founders, well, most of the founders Most of the founders understood that an organization like that has no real reason to do anything but waste your money, make your life harder, grandstand on your suffering, and use it as an excuse to take even more money and power from you. And that is why they recognized, again, most of them recognized, that government was an evil. They saw it as a necessary evil, but they thought it was an evil nonetheless. And that's why they sought to strictly limit it to a small handful of duties and leave everything else to the states and, more importantly, to you, individual human beings, the people. Now, those restrictions are fantastic as long as they're actually abided to. And the problem is they're not being abided to because our elected officials are not being expected to respect us as individual human beings and treat us as such. They do not see us as people who can live our lives better than any politicians or bureaucrats here in D.C. or in our state capitals can. And so instead of letting us live our lives, they keep getting government more and more out of our way. We are the only ones who understand that the solution is to get government out of the way. Now, there was a very interesting effort, and it's not the first time it's happened, that there was a very interesting effort, and hopefully might be the last one, but it may happen again, an effort to nominate an anti-libertarian candidate as the libertarian nominee, with the idea that if we did it, we might get more votes and more attention. Just think, folks. If we run a candidate for president who is openly hostile to libertarianism, we might qualify for the debates. And millions of Americans, and not to mention many other millions around the world, will get exposed to libertarianism for the first time from someone who's openly hostile to libertarianism. Oh, but hear me out. Not only that, we might even get 5%, giving us major party status and ensuring that in every single election cycle, we will be pressured to run another anti-liberty candidate to maintain our status, thereby becoming an active detriment to the liberty movement. And all we have to do to get this incredible deal is demonstrate to the American voter and to ourselves that we are worse than what we seek to replace. Let's be very clear about something. Republicans and Democrats usually hold out to actually win before they sell out. If we are willing to sell out our principles and run someone who is hostile to our ideas for the possibility of 5%, imagine what we do to win. No. A libertarian party like that is a waste of every dollar, every penny, and every second that has ever been spent on it. So we're never going to do that again, right? Good. That's right. We are not a last resort for the newest candidate to fail to get the Republican or Democratic nomination ever again. We are not that. We are not here for catchy slogans. We are not here for dubious campaign promises, and we're sure as hell not here to be some squishy centrist party that's scared of its own shadow. We are here for one thing, a revolution. We are here to get the government the hell out of the people's way. We are here to end the IRS and the FBI and the ATF and the DEA and the CDC, and I'm pretty sure I already said the FBI, but hell, we're going to do it twice. And a slew of other alphabet agencies and departments. And yes, of course, we are here to end the Federal Reserve. I know how to get the air horn. We are here, that's right, we are here to put America first by putting the American people first. We are here to end the endless wars and the endless occupations and the endless spending and the endless debt and the endless inflation and the endless regulatory creep. And we are here to ensure that there will never be another lockdown or mandate or any other regulatory agency power grab ever again. We are here to tell the American people one thing. We respect you. We know that you can lead your life far better than any swamp creature can, and we're going to take the power out of their hands and put it back in yours where it always belonged so that you can live your life. We are here. The Libertarian Party is here to fight for a freer America. Now, who's with us?
Thank you, Spike Cohen.
There's a call for law and order to try and, end the drug problem. But what it has given us is the largest expanse of government in history. For the last 50 years, police have been militarized, they have been given expanded power, they have gone into every single aspect of your life. They stop you to look for drugs in your car. They do everything that they can to get these drugs. And they do it because it gets them power and it has led to the expanse of government. We need to end the war on drugs and get people the help that they need. When it comes to self-defense, we believe in the right to self-defense in all cases. If you own your person and you own your property and you own your house, you have the right to self-defense. There are so many ways that the government has gotten ingrained in healthcare. Regulation, monopolies, certificate of need laws, requiring occupational licensing for nurses and other people. There are plenty of people who can do the job. There are plenty of places that need hospitals, but the counties and the cities, they lobby to prevent competition. We need government out of healthcare in North Carolina. If we could do that, we could significantly lower the prices and increase the scope of the services that are offered in the state. Currently, we have an ABC system and a state lottery and somewhat legalized gambling, and the government needs to be out of the business of vices completely. If you want and you believe in actual freedom, let people make their own moonshine, trade their own whiskey, gamble their own money, play bingo. You can't play bingo in North Carolina without a license. It's absurd. Get them out. And when it comes to corporate welfare, no more. No more corporate welfare. Governor Cooper and the Republicans for the last however long have been giving businesses incentives to come here. Look at VinFast. They've taken a bunch of people's money or house and property, and they're a failed company. They haven't done anything in North Carolina. We need to stop having government pick winners and losers. When it comes to taxation, taxation is coercion. I do not consent to taxation. My money is being taken from me, ultimately with a guy with a gun pointing it at me and saying, you pay or you go to jail. That's the reality of taxation. It's a little radical, but we have to realize if we want something, we will be able to do it voluntarily.
My name is Mike Ross. I'm the Libertarian candidate for governor. I'm 41 years old. This is my first time running for any political office. And then one day, I had hit the news that his service dog was tased by the police. Because somebody called the cops and said someone's out here soliciting for money, which I don't know about you guys, I believe in the Constitution of the United States. I hope all of you do since we all live here. But to me, if I were to go over to any of you and say, hey, can I have $1? All I've done is speak. It should be protected by the Constitution that this man was thrown to the ground, brutalized, had his service dog, a licensed medical device, ultimately lost, was thrown in a cage, and because of our backwards body camera laws, we had to raise $30,000 just to get the evidence of the crime committed by our police out there. The news tried to get it, judge said no. Took 9 rallies that we organized, and from that, I'm now the gubernatorial candidate for the Libertarian Party. The 10th Amendment to the Constitution gives us the solution to any sort of federal overreach, and it basically says that anything the federal government is not entitled to do expressly by the Constitution is given to the states, or more specifically, we the people. If tyranny rises, I expect to stand alongside my fellow North Carolinians of all parties and say no. We do not buy this. This is not in our interest, and we will not go along. The government's causing more problems than they're solving with all of these. And maybe they should just trust us and our communities to solve this at the local level. And if I don't like what you guys are doing here in Raleigh, guess what? I don't live here. Is it really any of my business? If you elect me for governor, I guess maybe it will be for a few years. But I'm very much a believer in trusting the people of North Carolina. It's us who made this state great. It's us who made this country great. And I think that the regulation is always going to be problematic. And the best way to do it is really, as scary as it is, give us freedom.
My name is Shelane Etchison, and I'm a proud Army combat veteran. I've served in some of the world's worst conflict zones, defending the ideals of freedom, equality, and justice. Now I'm running for Congress in North Carolina's 9th District as an independent. Because just like you, I am tired of politicians who care more about party politics than they care about us. Politicians who only focus on the extremes and divide, not unite. This is not real leadership, and we deserve better. So if you're tired of the partisan games, join me. And let's send a message to Washington that North Carolina is ready for a new, independent leader in Congress.
What's up, Liberty lovers of North Carolina and everywhere around the country and world? I'm assuming I have tens of thousands of followers that just don't show up in my statistics yet. Welcome back to Season 4, Episode 6 of Liberty Inc. Our featured guest this evening, someone I'm really excited about, running as an independent in North Carolina, very liberty-minded, a veteran. And Shelane, thank you publicly for your service, especially coming off Memorial Day. I say often on the podcast, there's no greater act of heroism than being willing to die for someone else. Thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts. We appreciate it. We wouldn't be free without you. I am very happy to introduce to North Carolina, at least libertarians in North Carolina, Shelane Etchison. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on the podcast, Rob. I appreciate it. And thank you for those kind words and introduction, certainly.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So one thing I do a little differently, you watch some podcasts and they want to give the person's bio up front, but I like to hear it from you. So I deliberately don't even say what you're running for, just that you're a candidate. But before we get into the politics side of it, just tell us about yourself.
Well, I think I'm a little bit of an enigma in lots of ways, and the fact that I'm running as an independent is seems to track with that. But so my background, my profession, adult profession, was all in the military, and I do not come from a military family at all. In fact, my mother and her side of the family are Canadian, so my earliest memories were growing up in British Columbia, Canada, in the mountains there, and but, 9/11 happened when I was in high school, and I had always been very interested in like news, foreign affairs, like just kind of I was a more serious kid, and
I believe that.
and yeah, more kind of studious, serious. And so anyway, that was a huge, huge event for many of us millennials. I'm assuming you're in that category as well.
Exennial. I was 21 when it happened, senior in college.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
So
still the defining moment of historically for me.
certainly. And and so I couldn't shake the fact that, I'm watching our country's response to this event and then seeing people, leaving high school and joining the military. And anyway, I leap of faith, I joined ROTC in college. And mind you, I was also in a sorority at that time and minoring in like women's studies or feminist literature.
At
Okay,
Harvard,
so
right?
no,
Oh.
this was in I was a product of a Florida public school education. Okay, so
Okay.
this was undergraduate. I was at Central Florida.
Oh, that's a good school. I have a bunch of friends that went there.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. They're all really successful. That's what I know. So
I mean, it's a big public school. I, sure. Sure, it was good. I
just go with it.
it was good, but anyway, I joined ROTC, and like I said, it didn't quite fit that I was joining the military, given, don't have a family background in it at all, but just, really on a hunch that this was what I needed to do. And anyway, so then 2008 was when I graduated, went to the Army, was in it for 11 plus years. I could tell you more about that. But when you say like who I am, that is so many aspects of military service really sharpens and defines who you are. And I like to say the grit that it pulls out of you, and especially being a woman and I was in mostly special operations, just a lot of challenges that come with that. But so I spent a lot of time in North Carolina, stationed here, so that's kind of what brings me to this state and where I have been since 2011. And so I'm digging deep into that aspect of grit, right? And digging deep in that aspect of listening to my intuition on what I need to be doing for liberty, right? And that is to run for office. So I'm running for Congress in the 9th district in North Carolina, again, as an independent.
So, and that's actually what intrigued me about you and why I wanted to have you on, is you're running as an independent and you are running truly as an independent. Like, we have people who run as independent and I'll go check out their bio and it's like, all right, this is a Democrat or this is a Republican. They just, they're trying to be cool by shedding the party affiliation, but you really do not fit in a box. Like, you have 100% staked a claim on sort of what your principles are and then applied those principles to how you're going to look at each issue. What made you decide to run, though?
Well, so in the military,
because it's got to be worse than the military, like much more terrible people.
yeah, it's hard for sure. So in the military, and I've spent a lot of time abroad. As a 23-year-old, that was my first deployment. I was in Ramadi, Iraq. I was leading a platoon of soldiers. 25, I was in Afghanistan with special operations, one of the first women in combat.
And wow,
yeah,
that'll make you grow up fast.
100, absolutely, completely sobers you up. And spent time in Syria, elsewhere in the Middle East. There's just no way that you can spend that much time abroad without having a deep appreciation for really the ideals of what this country is supposed to stand for and our freedoms, our rights. And people, I think so many people here don't understand that and take that for granted. Like, you can stand on a street corner and say, like, F Joe Biden, and you won't be jailed for that.
You can burn the flag.
You can.
There's like 80 countries you'd be put to death for that.
Yes. Or even as a woman, so much of my time was spent in the Middle East. I mean, women are completely second-class citizens, don't even have rights to make the basic decisions for themselves in so many ways. And we need to have leaders at the helm in all levels of government where that appreciation and safeguarding of our democratic ideals and freedoms really should be at the center of it. And instead, all we're seeing right now is a lot of partisan, self-serving games, gridlock. Meanwhile, we have so many issues in our country that need to get resolved. And we are entrusting these people by electing them to solve these problems. And they're not. They're failing. And so I'm not one when I feel like there's a problem. I don't do good sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And it also breaks my heart when I see so many Americans really starting to lose hope and faith that our best days are ahead of us. They think they're behind us. And I mean, I'm about to be 38 next week. I've got a lot of life to live. Thank you. Got a lot more life to live here. And we just can't have that. We need to have people that are feeling hopeful for our future. And I think it takes the right leaders who are going to help instill that and bring that back. So there's just, I have the ability and the will to do this. And it's kind of like at 9/11, someone's got to go, someone's got to do this. Why not me? And that's how I feel about this. Someone has to step up and run, give people more options. Why not me?
So hearing you say that about being in other countries brought a little tear to my eye. Like, for real, I lived in Hong Kong for a while and traveled all over China. And I'm proud to say I've been a libertarian from day one. But as my wife says, it's just because I don't like being told what to do.
I've been accused of that before.
Yeah, there's some legitimacy.
I'm the eldest daughter, and people are like,
I'm the oldest.
No one tells Shelane what to do.
Yes, exactly. There's Rob's boss and people around again. But
that's exactly. My brother's like,
I'm not
They're like,
bossing them around. I'm just
the
right.
military was perfect for you. You get to boss people around all day. I'm like, it's not like that. You're leading, you
Yeah,
know?
if you're right, you know.
You're right. Anyway.
So I feel like, give me a better idea. You got that? All right, then shut up.
Oh, that's funny.
But some of the things in China, and it's weird because it's not as restrictive in some ways as we think, but it's far more restrictive in others. Like, we've never lived under a truly authoritarian, tyrannical government here, so we don't understand what that's like.
Mhm.
And so it's like one thing, like we were in Tiananmen Square, and I was asking someone about the event, and like they're aware of it, and they expect Americans to ask about it, but they're ready with the answer. It happened because there was too much open space. And so we put in all these big vases, and that'll make sure something like that doesn't happen again. And that's like 100% either they believe it or they are committed to it.
Yes.
But if they don't, like, are the special police going to show up and black bag over your head? Probably not. You're going to get taken in and get a talking to.
Yep.
But just that's crazy.
Yep.
Like, you express an opinion that's a historical fact, and the cops will give you a talking to. And then if you continue, then you end up going to a re-education camp. And that is really terrifying. And so you mentioned we entrust these politicians to sort of guide the country. And I think what you hit on is that what we entrust them to do now is to fight against the other party. And so then they're incentivized to just get their base to hate the other side more. And we just get wrapped up in this crazy polarization of like, well, if this person is on that side, he wants me to die, like literally threatening my life.
Yeah.
Like, if you support Donald Trump, you want to murder all of America. Or if you support Joe Biden, you want to turn us into a communist hellhole and take everything I have. And it's like,
Right.
I don't like either of the two, but that's not really what.
Right. No, and that's, to me, that is one of the largest threats facing our country right now, is the internal divisions that are being sowed. And we no longer can look at Americans as you're in this political party, you're in this political party, as just, fellow Americans who happen to differ somewhat on ideology. And the margin of error of that used to be pretty small. And now it is truly like, I can no longer have Thanksgiving dinner with you, or like, you are disavowed from my family, or like, you are worth, like, you are worthless. That's literally how civil wars start, where you start to
100%. Normalize excommunicating your Trump loving grandfather, whatever.
Yes. But also so much, like, the American public, I think, gets somewhat permission, or they look at our leaders as examples. It's like, oh, conditioning of, well, my parents or the leaders are doing this, so now there kind of gives permission in a way to act like that. And so this is something that I actually said. I was talking to a gun club last week, and it depends on who I talk to, but like, I try to get people out of this idea to open up their apertures to consider an independent. Because, by the way, I'm actually the first person to qualify for the ballot at the congressional level in North Carolina.
Which is amazing. And I'm excited to ask you about that in a minute.
Yeah. But, I try to get people thinking a little more creatively, where I say, listen, I know what you're told. We all want better for our country. Okay, we do. And I know what you're told is we just need to get a Republican majority and it'll all be better. Or we just need to get a Democrat majority and it's all going to be better. And that's not true, because we've seen where we've had, Republican House, Senate, presidency, and that lasts for 2 years. And what actually gets done? Very little. And then that oscillates. And oftentimes, you're going to have a divided Congress, or right now, the margins are going to be very slim. You need to start electing different types of people to these positions that are going to be willing to work in a bipartisan manner, and who are not going to be seeing people from the other party as like, my job is to just discredit you and keep the political warfare going. And so it's not about just get a majority here, just get a majority there. You really need to start examining the character of the people that you're electing and what they're peddling to you. Like, are they actually talking about substantive issues and how they're going to be bringing solutions? Or are they just talking about vote for me because that party's bad?
Have you ever come across Represent Us, the group Represent Us?
I don't think I have.
They did a thing with
I'm writing this down.
oh, who's the woman from the Hunger Games?
Katniss?
Yeah,
Jennifer Lawrence?
I know Katniss, Jennifer Lawrence, there it is. So she's one of the spokespeople.
Oh, okay.
I'll drop the video in. I did a thing with them last season too. So essentially, if you look at the likelihood of a bill being passed, 100% of people want a bill to be passed. It has a 30% chance of being passed. And if 0% of people want a bill to be passed, it has a 30% chance of being passed. And the way they did this is they looked at just all the bills that have passed versus popular public opinion. Obviously, we have yet to have one that's had all or nothing, but the politicians really don't care what the constituents think. They care what big donors think, and that's who they're putting the bills out there for. So
we are witnessing a total political system failure in America. If you're anything like me, you may find yourself constantly overwhelmed by everything that's wrong with politics. And when I say politics, I'm not talking about Democrats or Republicans. I'm talking about the flaws that exist in our political system, regardless of which party is in power. And I know it's hard to talk about politics these days, but look, the government is ours. We pay for it, so it needs to work for us. And right now it doesn't, and I mean it really doesn't. So what's going on here? Is it Russian meddling in social media? Is it him? Is it her? No. Those two were the least popular presidential candidates since they began keeping track of such things. Only 4% of Americans have a great deal of confidence in Congress now. Just 4%. America is no longer even considered a full democracy. We are witnessing a total political system failure in America, which is the complete opposite of what our nation's founders had in mind. So I'm going to show you 3 lines that show what's causing this failure, how we can fix it, and what you can do about it. So here's your first line. What I want you to do is take any issue you really care about and picture it on this line. This line comes from a Princeton University study that shows how public opinion influences the laws that Congress does or doesn't pass. They looked at 1,800 public opinion polls over a 20-year period, and we took their data and plotted it in this chart. See this horizontal line? That shows public support for a law amongst average Americans. This vertical line? That shows the likelihood of the public support leading to the passage of a law. When you plot it for the average American, you get a line that looks like this. There's your issue sitting on that line. If there is 0 support for a law, there's about a 30% chance that Congress is going to pass it. And if there is 100% support for something, the most popular thing ever, there's still a 30% chance that Congress is going to pass it. So the line is horizontal.
So it's awesome to see you go out, buck the system, gather the signatures, and come on as an independent voice. But we, the Libertarian Party in North Carolina especially, are well familiar with the barriers that the Uniparty puts up to prevent competition from getting on the ballot. So what was it like? What'd you have to go through to get your name on there?
Yeah, so, this is my first time running as a candidate. This is, I am diving headfirst into
Baptism by
this.
fire, yeah.
It is. And, again, it's the same thing kind of with the Army. I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. On paper, it doesn't look like I really fit here, but you just dive in, you figure it out, you be gritty, you problem solve. And again, there's nothing inherently that makes other people more valuable or worthy to run for office than you or me, right? That's the beauty of our country, is like, these self-made barriers of, I really don't believe in that. That's not been how I've lived my life, and I'm not going to start now. So anyway, when it was like, well, Shelane, you got to do this petition if you want to get on the ballot, and that's going to be hard to do. And, so it's like
12,000 signatures, right?
Yeah. So
That's
a little
amazing.
over 12,000 signatures. Yeah. It was, well, the threshold, what we needed was 7,460 valid signatures. So that number will be forever imprinted on my brain. But that's equivalent to 1.5% of registered voters in the district. And so we had about 7 weeks to collect those, but not all signatures are going to be considered valid for one reason or another, whether so much of the districts changed. There was redistricting done again at the end of last year. So people who think they live in the district now don't, or people who put, say, their old address instead of their current address, the signature won't be considered valid then.
And
So
they
there's
will.
all, yeah. And that's another thing where it's like, it's just really, an analog type system of like physical signatures and whoa, you wrote Tom on here, but your real name's Thomas. Like that
Yep.
may not be valid. So anyway, we certainly had to get an overage, and we ended up getting shy of like 12,000, like 700 signatures. But we got enough valid to get over that threshold and actually qualify.
That's incredible. And you just hit the pavement or attended events?
It was a lot. So it was a combination of like paid support. So I hired a canvassing company, and they worked a lot of the northern counties in the district, because this is a very large district, 7 counties. And then I had more of the southern aspect of it. And so that was between like me and volunteers. And I say, like, thank God a lot of my friends are from the military and can like put together a pretty mean operation. So a lot of it was I empowered people with having their own signature sheets, taking it to their own like places of work or worship or wherever in their own communities to collect them. That's what Christina, or the Libertarian friend, she did, and then they would mail them back to me. So I had that kind of system flowing. We also hit up different, mind you, this was in January and February. Those are very sleepy months. Okay. That's post holidays. It's winter. There's
It's
not
cold
a lot
here, it's like
there.
a little, people don't want to be out, especially if you're out of the mountains.
No. And I was like, dang it, if only there was like spring festivals or, summer stuff or fairs, that would be so jackpot. Nope, not in January, February. So it looked like a lot of time, honestly, in front of like post offices, gas stations. Gas stations were really good, believe it or not. Going to like dog parks, even just like, public street corners. And then when early voting started, because there's like 2 weeks of early voting here in North Carolina, that was pretty good, because everyone going there is a registered voter, which is part of the criteria. And so we would have help or volunteers standing
They're
out
just
there
working the
getting
polling
signatures.
places. Now you've got your system in place for the election too.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I still, have people that help canvass and get signatures. And so, they can be mobilized and stuff to help get out the vote and things like that.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. It's
Thank you.
inspirational. It's great to hear someone like they throw down the challenge within the system and you're like, all right, challenge accepted.
Yeah. Well, what's wild, Rob, is when I agreed to do this, like I put in the petition mid-December. It was the last day of filing. I submitted it, and the very deadline was, 2.5 months away. So I was like, got to get through Christmas and the new year. Okay. Find my help, organize my friends. Like, how are we gonna do this? Right. And I did not know that no one has successfully done this before at the congressional level. And so it was just, we submitted the signatures, they went for counting with the State Board of Elections, and then they had to go through an audit with the State Board of Elections. And then they like came back finally, this was maybe even like 3 weeks ago when I got the final okay.
Wow.
And they said, congratulations, like Shelane, you're on the ballot, you're good. You met all the requirements, you passed the audit. And oh, by the way, you're the first one to do this. So that was really gratifying and news to me.
So a couple years ago, we helped the Green Party get enough signatures to be recognized on the ballot.
Okay.
And Matthew Ho was running for the Senate for the Green Party. We had Shannon Bray, who's our lieutenant governor candidate now for the Libertarian Party.
Mm-hmm.
And it was what was it, Bud and Beasley, I think. So it's the most expensive Senate race in history, or it was at the time, $480 million.
Mm.
Mark Elias, who there's very few people I will speak bad of. I have nothing good to say about that man. He's a terrible person, but he's head of the Elias law firm, and he sued the Green Party to keep them off the ballot because that would hurt the Democrats in his mind. Took him a month. He spent something like $3 million, some outrageous number, and he lost. Matthew Ho gets on. Beasley lost, and in my mind, it's because, and just 35,000 foot view, she did not run a great campaign. But just a couple months ago, the Dems were ordered to pay the Green Party like some sort of fine or something for lawyer fees for a frivolous lawsuit to keep Matthew Ho off the ballot. So appreciate the hurdles you overcame. Like, that's amazing. And it's inspirational. Everyone listening, like, it can be done. Like, citizen activism works. Go out and do it. You don't have to sit there and take it. Shelane is an example. She did it. It can be done. And in a big district too. And a very Republican one, correct?
Yeah, yeah, it's a Republican leaning district, especially with the redistricting here, the gerrymandering. It's made even more red.
So gerrymandering is a good segue because I want to ask you about the issues that are important to you. And I know that sort of election fairness, restoring the voice of the people in our democracy is a priority for you. What's your mindset there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, we're supposed to be in a representative democracy, but people don't feel represented. Okay. And I like to say that the numbers tell a story. Why are so many more Americans saying that they're now politically independent? In my district, it's 35%. That's on par with the number of registered Republicans. I know it's a plurality in our state. And then nationally, it kind of oscillates between like low 40% to even, I think the highest it got was like 49%. People are opting out because they do not feel like they have a voice and are being represented with the two major parties. And actually, that's something I wanted to ask you. Like, is there an uptick in Libertarian registration that you've noticed?
So national numbers, I actually don't know. I was trying to look this up last week, and it's trickier to find than I thought it was going to be. So I figured I'd wait till after the election, and then it'll be easier to see. But last year in North Carolina, we became the second state ever to pass 50,000 registered libertarians.
Okay.
California is the first, not known as the most libertarian state, but it's a massive state. So it's a very small
huge
percentage.
Population. Yeah.
So we are the biggest population of libertarians, and it has been going up slower than I would like, but pretty steadily for quite some time. We were at, I think, 18,000 in 2016. So
oh, that's significant then.
Yeah, because people are just over it, and
they really are. And everyone likes to say like nothing's black and white. Well, yeah, because we don't really how few things are very binary in our world and our life. And so I think that people are waking up and are tired of just, well, either you have to be Republican, you have to be Democrat, and especially when right now the trend just keeps having the party members and those elected just be more catering to the extremes. And most people are not the extremes, right? There's a lot of that common sense middle majority. And so you get to, how can we start, what reforms can be done to help rectify that so that people feel like the folks on their ballot, they have options where they can enthusiastically vote for someone because they say this person truly represents me and my interests. And so, the way primary systems are run is stated a lot as an example for that. That
deliberately exclusionary.
Oh yeah, certainly. So I'm an advocate for like open primaries.
Same.
Yeah, I think that would certainly help. North Carolina, we're a semi-open primary. And I think it's criminal for those that are closed primaries, where like if you're an unaffiliated voter like me, you literally can't vote in the primary. Like that is
they weaponize it. So I think you were in New York last week and you got to meet Larry Sharp, who's one of my favorite libertarians and one of the most prominent voices in our party. He got like, I'm going to get the number wrong, but like 18% 4 years ago when he ran for governor. It was something high. Maybe it wasn't 18%, but it was substantial. and then they upped the ballot requirements to a ridiculous level just to keep him off the ballot.
Yeah, it's and it, you know, and we like to say we live in a free market economy, right?
Well,
Competition.
we like to say.
I know. Well, no, that's what I like to say. But the premise of that is competition.
Yes.
We need to have that in our political arena as well. And we all say, you know, we are living in a duopoly. It is. And so the fact that rules can be changed on a dime to quash any sort of competition. And what pisses me off is it's like, that is so antithetical to the service of the people that you were supposed to represent. It's like that is, and to me, that's very anti-patriotic. And it goes back to like all of that time lived in country, spent time in countries abroad, and people are supposed to have a voice and options. And when that continues to be quashed by the two major parties, and both are guilty of doing it.
It's the Uniparty
okay?
to us.
Exactly. That is not a good trajectory for our country. So whether it's Libertarian or Green Party with their lawsuit or me doing it this way, I think there is certainly, you know, we're all kind of doing like doing this for the good cause of highlighting the barriers that exist for people to truly have options in what's supposed to be representative democracy. So, yeah, so certainly reforms with, and so gerrymandering, you know, that's a perfect example of that as well. And so you really make it like North Carolina, you know, for the most part, it's a 50-50 state. Well, that's actually not true. You know, most people
it's
are
like a 30-30-40 unaffiliated now.
Yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. That's true. But Republicans are the minority across the state. They are. So then why do they have a supermajority in our state legislature?
Hey, you're preaching to the choir here.
Manipulation.
And
Manipulation of the rules.
Happens. Like they passed the bill where they can just hide documents. They can just destroy them now. There's no accountability. They don't care.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, and there are reforms that can be done at the federal level. And so, you know, there's actually legislation that's been drafted for federal congressional races that there needs to be independent redistricting commissions. And so I think that you know, because the gerrymandering that happens in New York that favors Democrats, or it's the gerrymandering that happens here in North Carolina.
All playing the games. Maryland did the same thing for Dems. We're doing it for Republicans.
Right. But like we are all impacted with federal level legislation. So what's going on in these other states absolutely affects us as North Carolinians. And so I think that would absolutely be support of federal level legislation for the federal races to have independent redistricting commissions, and bring back competition. I mean, I think it's cowardly when people have to doctor maps like that. You ought to win off the merits of your positions and your arguments, right? And instead of having to cheat, like there's no honor in that.
I have faith, or you have faith, and I admire that. I like the idea of the federal independent commissions, but I don't think it will work. I think as long as there's power to be bought with money, money will find a way to buy the power.
Well, that's the thing.
I think that's what's going on.
Okay, well, money is another huge issue.
How do you get money out of politics? I don't think it's possible.
I mean, I don't think it's fully possible, but I mean, I don't know where you stand on like the Citizens United ruling, but you know, I don't think that there should be unfettered amounts of corporate money in politics influencing it.
Especially when it's corporations that politicians are getting rich owning their stock.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you said it before. It is the incentives are more aligned with appeasing donors than the people, their constituents that they are supposed to serve. And man, and I mean, and I could kind of see that too, because when it costs so much money now to run successful campaign, and you know, are you going to be able to amass that with a bunch of small dollar donations? You know, you're going to have to rely perhaps on more large dollar donors. And then that's just so the reciprocity principle is so ingrained in our human psyche that now I am indebted and owed to this person, right? Yeah. And so it really does make perverse incentives. And so I mean, it's a big problem. But yeah, the way to lessen the influence of money in our politics would be great. Or to just have people that are more principled leaders and understand that just because someone's donating to my campaign does not make me beholden to them. And you would hope, right, you would hope that through, communication, transparency with your voters, because ultimately that's what you need, that you would be rewarded for that and seen as a person of principle, and worth being voted in for.
I'm with you. I'd love to see it. I think it's
Yeah.
tricky because like good, talented people, for the most part, aren't like, what I want to do is go into politics. So I guess for me, like I said before, how do you get money out of politics? I don't think you can. The answer is to just take so much power away from politicians that it's not worth buying anything. The idea of getting principled people in is incredibly appealing. I do wonder. So again, this is a libertarian podcast. I'm comms director for the LPNC. You're not a libertarian. Why are we getting you on the podcast? And you're intriguing in a lot of ways. One, you're very liberty minded, which I want to ask about next. But you strike me as a principled person and like a talented person. You were in special ops in the military at a young age. You seem to have succeeded everywhere you've gone. You went to Harvard. That's why I was like, why are you running? Like, there's like way better things you could be doing. But in all seriousness, it's like of everyone in Congress, I like Thomas Massey. That's about it. There's others that are okay. Rand Paul's okay. If Justin Amash gets back in, I'll like him. I liked AOC at first, but she's completely sold out. And like I didn't have to agree with her. I just thought she was principled, and now I don't at all. She's bought and sold as the rest of them. So this is inspirational. Like, you still have faith. I want to keep having faith. I love the founding documents of our country. I think they're the greatest achievement in the social history of human beings. But I do just see them getting run away with, and courts that are bought and sold to approve people getting around them.
So is there shelf life then? So, I am an advocate for term limits. And I know that pulls very high. A lot of people are as well. And so I think that, the longer you're in, the more you're owed and indebted to different people, and perhaps, get corrupted. Compromised. Exactly. So I believe that if you were to have people in there for just a limited amount of time, that would be able to keep them more honest, principled. Because, I would like to believe that there's a lot of people that get into this
for the right reasons
initially that are well-intended, right? But then of course, like the machine takes hold, and there's people that I know that are good people, but they find themselves falling in line, saying things or getting,
justifies the mean mentality.
Yes. And that's something that, yes, exactly. And so, and I get that a lot about like, Shelane, wouldn't it just be so much easier to just run with a party? And so my background, I grew up in a Republican household. And so I've been only ever registered Republican and then registered independent. But like, on principle, like I'm not going to compromise some things and values that I care about to say like run on a Republican ticket. Or perhaps a Democrat ticket. Like I don't know. And I was even told that it was like, if you run with us, like we've got a platform, remember that, and it's like, well, what about me as an individual? And what I value and the leadership that I would want to bring. I want to be honest with the people about what I care about. And, you're beholden to the people, not a party. But unfortunately, that's just not how the environment is. And so, another reason why I'm doing this as an independent.
There's a huge philosophical conundrum that you bring up there. And this is something I struggle with. So we're the party of principle, libertarians, principle over party always. But we're so like anal retentive about it that we don't win elections. And that's a big part of it, is like, we're dedicated to principle. It's amazing, but we sometimes fail to recognize the game and the field that we're playing on and what we're up against. And it's like, I think I said before we got on, they designed the game wrote the rules, rewrite the rules in real time, but expect you to follow them even as they're rewritten, and they own the refs, judge, jury, and governing bodies. On the flip side, so Pat Newton, who's now the chair of the Forward Party, did a podcast with Sloan Ratchmuth a couple months ago, and she is a hardcore Republican, all the way Republican warrior. And I know Sloan, she can be a controversial person in North Carolina. I've always gotten along with her. I know she's dedicated. I certainly don't agree with her on a lot of things, but she was talking about their problems with, I believe, Tim Moore, maybe Ted Budd, I forget.
The Republican speaker of
Either the Republican speaker in North Carolina or one of the Republican senators. I forget which one it was.
Okay.
No, you know who it was? It was Tom Tillis.
Yeah, I was going to say Tom Tillis. Yeah, he's
there. It is. There it is. And they are going after him. And Pat was kind of challenging her on that, like he stuck to his principles. And she was like, no, he ran as a Republican committed to the Republican platform. And I was like, I kind of agree with her argument, but that's the problem with being with a party.
Right. You don't take an oath to the party, you take an oath to the Constitution.
Exactly.
And that's the whole thing of country over party. And it's incredibly frustrating when you're, and I guess I can understand the plight of the libertarians where you put principles first, but yet that's not getting you seats in these places of governance, right? And so and I've heard the arguments on both sides where it's like, just play the game, do what you need to do so you can get there and then do good, right? And you
have to a little bit. You have to. It's where do you cross the line of being compromised? We were talking about this before,
right.
And I don't mean to interrupt. I'm getting worked up about it. Please continue.
No, and that's something because, this is certainly a long shot doing this as an independent. I think it's needed. It's so many people find it refreshing, and I hope that it inspires more people to run this way. But it is a long shot. And so I find myself thinking, well, Shelane, if you do want to get into the policy realm and be in an elected position, I might have to run with a party, it's something that I might have to consider. And it's still on principle of it just really, really bothers me. And so I don't know if I will, I don't know what the future holds. I really hope that more independents and third party folks are able to break through. But, that also, and how does that happen? It also happens with the electorate being ready and willing to start casting their vote in a different way. And it really sucks that there's so much fear mongering that goes on that this is a throwaway vote. That statement to me is so arrogant.
I get furious.
It's so arrogant to me because it implies that you have to earn their votes, right?
Yeah.
It implies that you're entitled to that vote because you're with one of these two parties. And so that's another thing that I say in messaging where I was like, no, you are a free person and it is you in that ballot box and you can cast your ballot however you want. And it's crazy when you look at it. If you look at the plurality of people, if everyone who says everyone who's a registered independent in my district were to vote for me, that'd be neck and neck with the Republican then. Yeah. And so, yeah. So anyway,
game changer that would be.
Yeah, it really would. So I don't know. That's a little bit of a messaging conundrum that I think, but I believe more people are open to it now than ever. They're registering in different ways. They just need to cast their ballot in different ways. But here's the thing, they don't often get the choice because of the stuff that we're talking about, the barriers with the petition. I'm literally the first person. That is by design. And so that's what I tell people too. I'm like, for the first time in our state's history, you in the 9th district get a choice that no one has gotten before. How exciting is that? How exciting is that? And if you don't think that things are right now, the way they're going, you have a new option, exercise your voice, exercise your vote. And, and hopefully, we'll see how it goes. But I think the petition, the success of our petition, a very strong message was sent with that.
Absolutely. That you're willing to do it and you can do it.
Well, a strong message was sent that people were willing to sign.
Yeah.
You know, when we turned in almost 12,800 signatures of people who were willing to sign, say, we want an independent option on our ballot, that sends a very strong message. So anyway, you know, change happens incrementally, but I think more and more the electorate's just really waking up and tired of this, you know, two-party nonsense that they keep getting. And so, you know, hopefully there can be more breakthroughs with candidates like me and the Libertarians.
It's a reason I'm a big advocate for ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting, which
Yep.
it does have some problems. Like, it's not a panacea, but it's much better than what we have, and it also conditions people to get used to pulling the lever, pushing the button, whatever it may be, for a non-duopoly candidate. Because it's like you
Yes.
said, the fear mongering. A lot of people are not voting for someone, but they're voting against someone. They're so afraid of, well, I don't like the Republican, but what if the Democrat gets in? Like, they're gonna take my children and make them all gay. Or what if the Republican gets in? Like, they're just gonna shoot all the kids in the head. And
Yeah.
that's like the fear mongering that they put out.
Yes, exactly. No, I think so. You know, when we were talking about the different reforms, you know, open primaries, independent redistricting, I'm right there with you on ranked choice voting. I think that would be a huge game changer in getting through the idea that, like, this is just a wasted vote, and then getting more kind of like moderate type candidates in the mix. And so, but it's funny because a lot of like hardcore party people don't like it
Oh
because
no,
they're
of course not,
hardcore
because it
party
threatens their
people.
power base.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had people being like, oh, I like you, Shelane, but I don't know, the ranked choice voting, it's just going to get rhinos elected. And it's like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, you're missing the maybe. So anyway, I think restructuring that would be really, really helpful for our elections and getting different types of candidates in office.
As an aside, isn't that a crazy term, Republican in name only? Like, that's what makes you a Republican. Like, you're a Republican.
I would probably be considered a rhino. You know, again, I grew up in the Republican Party. And it very loosely, let me be very clear on that. It's what my parents were, and so that's what I registered as. But I
You
remember I
really
went to my
believe in civil
first.
liberties? Because that's what I was going to ask you about next. And maybe let me curtail or dovetail into this question and give you a chance to expand on that. Because my question is going to be, and I ask every veteran this: why is it that veterans seem to be so liberty minded? And the first thing you have is individual liberties as your choice, and it's pro 2A, but it's also pro defending people, regardless of race, sexual orientation. For me,
Yes.
and I'm not some gay rights activist, but the issue that made me a libertarian was at 15, because I came up in a Republican household too. And I like the ideals, like limit the government as much as possible, shrink things, individual responsibility. And I get to high school and they're against gay marriage. And I'm like, well, why do they care who you want to be married to? Like, it just didn't compute. I couldn't. And I was like, so they're a bunch of hypocrites.
So like I can probably verbatim agree agree with that right there. So I remember I went to my first like young Republicans club. I was in high school, and what's funny is that I thought it was going to be young people, but the ages were like 18 to 40, so I couldn't even be a member. I was like an associate member because I was still, I don't know, I was probably 16. Um, and I go there, and again, as a high schooler, I could not compute the way they were talking about being against same-sex marriage and being anti-reproductive rights, anti-abortion. I just thought, like, why is that your business on telling people what to do? And you're coming at these conclusions based off most likely your religious views, which is your prerogative to have religious freedom.
Of course.
But that's the whole thing, religious freedom, right? Should not be imposing that in through governance.
Good ideas do not require force.
Right. And so even though I say, like, I had the Republican label, I never fully drank that Kool-Aid, and it made no sense to me even as a teenager. And so anyway, I like to say I've always been really an independent, minded
Sounds like it.
person.
It sounds like you've
Mhm.
always been a libertarian. You're just figuring it out now. Well, then,
I have, I have a strong libertarian bent, I suppose, but I do believe we should have driver's licenses.
there are other libertarians that think that. I tend to be. For everyone watching, I told Shelane beforehand, no matter how extreme a view she thinks she has, she should get to know some people in the party. And I led with, I think driver's licenses are authoritarian tyranny. That might have been a bit hyperbolic, but I was trying to make the point. I just don't think the government should be able to restrict your freedom to operationalize your freedom of movement.
Yeah. Okay.
Going with civil liberties, though, one I want to ask you about that I'm happy to see is you mentioned the Second Amendment as one of your top individual liberties that is worth defending, and it's one that's become super important to me in recent years because it is our last line of defense against tyranny. And people hear that and they're like, "Oh, what are you going to revolt against the government?" And like, no, I don't want to. But an armed population probably makes that far more unlikely of ever having to happen. And further, what is more sort of basic as a fundamental right than your right to defend yourself?
Yeah.
Want to
So
get some
I
thoughts on
think
2A?
so I mean, I support the 2A. I mean, it's very clear. It's a constitutional amendment. I own firearms. There's certainly, I feel safer having one available with me. And that is my constitutional right. And so, this is it's very controversial, but I don't think most sensible folks that I talk to would agree with that.
You think?
The conversation, I do.
Because
Well,
like moms demand action, the Dems,
at least here in this district, and this is a
well,
pretty
you're in a
red
Republican
district.
district.
But even Democrats, what the conversation really is about, though, is how do we keep people safe from gun violence?
Oh, your pups.
How do we keep kids safe? Yeah, I know.
Boxer?
How do we? No, she's like Australian cattle dog.
Oh, there she is. Okay, very cute.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm a
regular.
dog. I like dogs.
No, it's okay.
Keep going. So how do we keep people safe? I apologize.
Yes. And so I can agree with that. How do we prevent or help mitigate unintended deaths with guns, be it to self or others? And so I think that, and most gun owners agree with that too. So I feel like there's two different things that we're talking about. It's sort of a public safety thing that needs to get addressed. What are the best ways of doing that? But then also respecting the constitutional amendment to, the right to bear arms. And so I think the conversation needs to be, and I tell this, like I told you, I was talking to a gun club last week, and I said, the climate has gotten so partisan where we need to have the pro 2A people in on the conversation on how to help prevent undue deaths to guns, because we all want to see that mitigated and prevented, right? While respecting our constitutional, right to carry. So, and generally, I mean, I know there's some people, so I was up at Harvard. There's a lot of like progressive folks up there who have never, a lot of people don't understand why anyone would want a firearm. And I think that's the thing with the United States. We are such a culturally diverse country that even in our own country, you've got states where people have never seen a firearm in their life. They don't want to. They literally do not understand why anyone should have the right to own one.
Yep.
But then I was like, I have a firearm. I've been, a woman who's traveled, who's literally driven from Alaska to Florida by herself. And no, seriously. And yeah, that was pretty wild. I used to be stationed in Alaska. And for my personal safety, I'm more comfortable with my firearm. So anyway, it's a topic that I really try to be respectful of getting to the root of the problem. And it's about how to how to prevent violence and save people's lives, and especially children's lives. We all want to save children's lives from gun violence.
I think it's another one. So, because first of all, everything's a crisis, right? The climate crisis, the COVID crisis, the student debt crisis, the gun violence crisis,
The border
like,
crisis. There's
yeah, the border
everything's really catastrophized. Yeah.
They want to trigger that fight or flight response. They want your cortisol and your epinephrine pounding, so you're freaking out, and then anyone standing in the way is an enemy. It's not lost on me that 90 years ago, kids brought their guns to high school. They had their rifles in the racks of their cars.
Mhm.
Everyone was fine with firearms. They understood firearm safety, and you didn't have problems. And now that it's sort of been put on this weird forbidden pedestal, you have things where it's like on The View, I forget which one of the hosts it was, but she said, why would anyone hunt with an AR-15? Like, doesn't that destroy the animal? And it's like, actually 5.56 isn't even allowed for hunting in most places because it won't kill the animal, it'll just hurt it.
I was going to say a lot of people are very ignorant about firearms and even just the terminology. Like, so
it's I'm of the opinion that we are at or near crisis level with the mental health in this country, and that's what we need to address. I think the random sensationalized violence, like the school shootings, which are incredibly rare, but still one is way too many. But those are a result of mental health breakdowns. And then a lot of the other mass shooting is a result of poverty and cycles of violence. And that's a different thing, and it's tough to break. But it comes back to the, like, and I will always pick on the left for the guns thing. And I got my things, obviously I pick on the right too, but it's like guns become the boogeyman. And it's like, oh, well, it's not that they want a right to defend themselves. They need these weapons of war because they want your children to die. And like, that's a pretty strong misrepresentation. But I do think, like, if you listen to some of the Moms Demand Action stuff, that's what they're pushing. On the right, I mean, you have just as much crazy on the right, like the immigration crisis. There are very few people, I think, who would be opposed to knowing who's coming into our country. like
right.
Just there are very few people that are just wide open borders. I do know some anarchist libertarians like that, but they believe in property rights, and it's like, you defend your property. It's a whole different thing. Those people are very good with like a controlled immigration system, but on the right, they turn immigrants into boogeymen. Like, well, they're all just out there doing nothing but committing crimes and ruin the economy. And like, nah, they come here because this country's amazing and they want a better life.
Yep. Yeah. So the mental health, also on my issues, I have something on there on like societal wellness, just my small blurb on that.
You close with that, so it matters to you.
Well, it does. And when you look at, and this is quite complex, and I think we're learning more and more every day with research that's coming out. What is happening to our society that leads to these, mass shootings that you were talking about, where they weren't an issue, but since Columbine, it has become an issue.
I remember that. I was a freshman in college for that.
Oh, I remember watching that too. Yeah. I think that we see more coming out with the effects of our young people growing up online and in this digital age, and quite literally not growing up building the social skills that they're supposed to have. There's a complete rise in like social anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, and anxiety as well. And people are not learning how to communicate with one another and literally just be human. And so
points for trolling, negativity is incentivized and encouraged. You're getting the dopamine hits for clicks.
And I am so thankful that I just skated through high school without having social media. I think Facebook came about when I was a freshman in high school, or I'm sorry, a freshman in college. I cannot imagine having social media so I do some substitute teaching on the side as well at the high school here, public high school. And you can just see the difference with the kids. They're on their Chromebooks, they've got their phones back there, and it's just I'm really worried about the young people in the digital age and the negative effects that that's happening for them. And so, I think that we need to, how do we start connecting people more to themselves, to getting back to, families, community.
And yeah,
Um,
community, like what happened to like
mhm.
meeting for a drink
I know,
or getting
right?
lunch after church? Like these just human to human interaction things.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so one thing that I'm a pretty big advocate for is, how do we start healing ourselves? I know in the military, I say when people, you're thrown into like a platoon or, a group of people from all over the country, all backgrounds, different cultures, right? And you have to work together. You have a mission to
You have a common
accomplish.
goal.
You have a common goal. And you get out of your own bubble, and your perspective starts to broaden. And I think that how can we replicate that with more like incentivized national service programs for our young people? How do we start giving people some, purpose, some perspective, some skills and opportunities without having to, go in the military, right? I think our all volunteer force is great. I fully support that. But how are we building more avenues to bring those life skills, character building skills, the perspective opportunities to our young people?
I'm obviously I'm against almost every regulation, law, government action, but I would be okay with a law that you have to wait tables for 1 year to support yourself.
That's,
It would accomplish the same thing. I paid for college serving and bartending, and like when your paycheck, like your rent depends on somebody sits for 4 hours, runs up a $250 tab and leaves you $10, and you're
mm,
like, would this be a justifiable homicide? But you have to say like, thank you, I hope to see you again soon.
mhm,
And it's just
mhm,
humbling. And then the next person
mhm.
comes in and has a $20 check, sits for 30 minutes and leaves you $50, like have a nice day or so. And you're just like,
Yeah,
it goes up
yeah,
and down. But
yeah. I
they
used to be I used to be a valet,
okay, it's probably
um,
the same thing.
in college, and so we had to like, the parking garage was really far, so we had to like sprint from the hotel to the parking garage, get these cars right, and you're like, oh, this is a nice car, I'm gonna get a good tip, and then it's like, boom, you get $1. And so you're like, I just hustled my ass out there for you. But anyway, yeah, humbling experiences for sure.
You mentioned something interesting, and like maybe after your political career, you write a book on it. I'd happily help edit it. But this whole thing about like you're thrown into a platoon with a bunch of different people, and that doesn't matter. You're working towards something. So there's this show, and everyone listening, feel free to make fun of me. I used to watch it. I stopped because it got redundant, or I still would, but it was Married at First Sight. And I don't know if you've seen this, but the show was,
No.
so they had like these experts, four experts, and they picked four couples, and the couples met at the altar for the first time and had 8 weeks to try to make the marriage work. The premise of the show, and Pastor Cal was the primary expert, and it never worked out, but we're American, we're not conditioned for this. The premise was arranged marriages have like a 95% success rate. And even when you adjust for very patriarchal societies, they still have like an 82% success rate. And the theory is, it's hard to prove causation, but the psychological theory is that it's because it's two people working toward a common goal. So instead of the goal just like being in love with each other, it's like, okay, our goal is to have a successful marriage with these financial milestones and this many children who do this many things. And it constantly drives success. And I think throughout our history as a country, we have had a goal. Like being American has meant something, and it meant something good and something great. Like it was this beautiful idea. We're the shining city on the hill.
Mhm.
And it meant succeeding sometimes against our enemies, sure, like that's human nature, but for the most part, for the benefit of Americans. Things like the moon race, like
Mhm.
we were going to do it, like Kennedy said, we don't do these things because they're easy, but because they're hard.
Because
Like
they're
that's
hard.
inspirational.
Yep.
And now our goal has been like, who control the other side harder and like get the most clicks, and that's the social capital.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's against our own people, right? It's fighting from within. And I have to say it's like we used to have common enemies, be it, the fascists of World War II, communists of the Cold War, for, brief moment, the Islamic extremism of 9/11, or yeah, collective victories like the moon race. I mean, now what is it? The fighting is happening
Can your
within.
party win? That's really what it comes
And
down to.
yes, and the fact that there's like, I don't know, it's like 40% of Americans thinks we're on the precipice of a civil war. I mean, the fact that that is not blaring alarm bells across our country for our leaders to cut this shit, because I mean, there
You
are
can
people
cuss.
that,
It's a libertarian podcast.
okay,
You
I mean,
hesitated. Believe me, there's
why we can't continue like this? We can't. I'm not okay with that stat. I'm not okay with that. And so uh yeah, again, what is that like common unity that we need to be bringing back in? And I don't know, is this something that, and I'm sure libertarians, you don't want any mandatory curriculum for students, but like, do we need to be hearkening on some of these like embedding American values and civics and stuff back in school, and or more literacy on what people are consuming online? And
that's a
hey,
big one.
here's
Jonathan
yeah.
Haidt just wrote a book about it that I'm halfway through.
Oh, I really like his work. It's
Yeah,
really
he's
good. Yeah, but even like my people in my family, I won't out them right now, but like, I would say like well-educated people will be like, "Oh, can you believe this article? Can you believe that they're doing this? All this money." And I'm like, "Okay, have you fact checked? What is the source of this? Okay. Can you corroborate this information anywhere else? No. Okay, that is fake. It's fake, you know?
or what I find is even worse. It's not fake. It's like they've selected it so it skirts the edges of what they can get by as being true,
Mhm.
but it is a complete distortion of reality.
Yeah. Yeah,
And like
exactly.
fake, you can be like, that's made up. But they're like, no, look, this actually happened in this one place, in this one city, this one time. And you're like, yeah, but here's
Yeah.
10,000 factors they don't mention.
So, I mean, how do we, I just think the pace and rise of the internet and with AI, it's happening so fast. How do we arm ourselves intellectually to not be duped by this? How do we, but you know what, when we have bad actors that are feeding right into this. I mean, troll farms in Russia that are like, we are completely falling in line with their playbook of wanting to weaken and divide our country from within. And then you have our leader, and that is the worst part of it. You have our leaders who are just completely on board with this again, for like, to beat the other party. It's it's really frustrating. And again, that's why like hopefully like there's good people that will stand up and start shedding light on this, and realize that, hey, we have a really good thing on our hands here. Our Constitution, like I'd like to see it, continue on well into centuries to come. It's a phenomenal document that you were talking about. And it's just a piece of paper. It's just a piece of paper,
It means
but we
nothing if we're not
trust
willing
in
to.
it. Right. Right. If we are not willing to trust in it and uphold in it, and it is not a game, ensuring that that remains well into the future. I don't know, I might computer that. We have to stop treating this like a game, and that we really need to start uniting around that document and our ideals and start working together again.
That actually is a great segue. I want to ask you about one more issue that I know you're passionate about, but it's the people who defend the rights that are enumerated in that Constitution, and its veterans issues. Um, we are doing a greater disservice to our armed forces veterans than any. I mean, I don't want to say any group in history. Our government has a couple of pretty
Yeah,
dark marks, but
sure.
any group right now, and it's not even close. How do we fix that? Because there are people who fought wars that we shouldn't have been involved in, who are now suffering from extreme just mental distortion from what they saw, and they're living on the streets as drug addicts, and our answer is to arrest them or cast them out. How do we solve that?
Yeah, well, I think that there's, the military can do, getting out of the military is hard, right? Like
Okay.
what you do you have that cohesive unit, right? Like you have this very strong identity, you have a tribe, you have a community, you have a sense of purpose. And I think, and a lot of times it's its own little bubble, right? And so a lot of things are either provided to you if you're living in a barracks or whatever, So I think there's a very like delicate window of time with people getting out to make sure that they are fully equipped for what it takes to now transition into being a civilian. And so, I think that's a lot. And I'm, I'm a pretty established, grounded person. I left the service and went to Harvard 2 weeks later, and it took me a solid year and a half for me to start feeling like I was adjusting. Okay. And I even thought, oh, no, I'm leaving, my elite job in special operations to go to an elite another organization, and I can skirt through all the transition stuff you hear about. Nope. I really struggled that first year, and actually the Boston VA was really quite good.
Okay, good to hear.
Boston's it's a bit of an anomaly. Boston is a hub for some of, the premier medical institutions in our country. And so there were excellent providers, and, and there's not a ton of veterans up there. So they getting appointments and stuff was pretty easy, but, I'm really thankful for the mental health support that I was able to get up there during that transition. But I think about people who maybe don't have access to that, or where the VA is not as functioning. Like I can absolutely see people growing despondent. They don't have a place. They don't know what to do. They don't have maybe the skills that are easily transferable into some civilian sector. So,
Or they have them, but it's not recognized. We knew of a field surgeon who couldn't get an EMT license.
see that like why? What bureaucratic like red
Because it was
tape was
trained
there?
in the military. He never got like the certifications that's insane. It's preposterous.
That is insane. That is. That is. But then, it's it's just how are we supporting veterans in these delicate times of transition? And then the VA, the VA it's not, like I said, I had good success with the one in Boston, but here in North Carolina, it's unfortunately been a different story for me personally. I mean, the wait time to get mental health help, I can see why people commit suicide waiting for treatment. It's just,
you're talking about a matter of minutes. This is life or death. They're on a razor's edge.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a lot of veterans, when they think like, this is the one resource that's supposed to be, helping me and I ought to be able to rely on, but instead you feel like you're just a cog in a very confusing, bureaucratic mess. Like I tried to make an appointment. The stories are ridiculous. Even I personally, I tried to make an appointment last week, and I tried to get in touch with this one clinic, okay, a women's clinic. I got transferred to 6 different people that had no idea who they're in, and I just was like, why it should not be this frustrating and confusing. So anyway, I'm running in a district that is very veteran heavy. It's home to Fort Bragg, now called Fort Liberty, largest military base by population. And, it's where I served for many, many years. And like me, a lot of veterans who serve here end up staying as a civilian as well. And, you know, we can talk about veteran plight. That's very real. I've personally know too many people who have taken their own lives, and quite recently this year as well.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So
It
there's
sucks. I
that.
lost my best friend to suicide 8 years
Yeah.
ago. Until you hit it, like it sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah. But I also want to highlight that veterans are a very capable force and very creative in problem solving. And you know, if you need to put on a petition drive real quick, you can do it. And so I actually think there's a lot of ways to harness that for good. And whether it's with like innovation hubs and cells and, you know, startup incubators, especially here in this area. I know there's a lot of vets who start their own companies and businesses, and like how is you know, the VA or their support mechanisms to make sure that like they are flourishing to the full extent that they can and can really do wonderful, wonderful things for, you know, the community and economy here.
You have been a fantastic guest. I have one last question. I have to warn you, this one is very controversial in the LPNC.
Okay.
So you were in special ops, you know firearms. What's better for home defense, an AR or a shotgun?
Oh. Well, I own a shotgun, so I'll have to say that because that's all I'm packing right now.
All right, that's one in the shotgun column.
There you go. There you go.
This has been a major back and forth for 2.5 years now.
Really? Okay.
We have articles
Well,
on it on our website. I mean, it is.
Oh, wow.
People are
Okay.
passionate.
Okay.
I'm
I
in the
believe
shotgun
it.
camp. I think they look cooler though. I don't have a, but people have written articles about like penetration, distribution, shot ratio, number of or amount of ammo. It gets really into
I'm
it.
sure. I'm sure. Well, I've got my Glock 22 next to my bed, so
All
you know, quick pick me up there. But
I got an
anyway,
M&P shield right there.
nice.
Shalane, thank you so much. Thank you for running. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for everything you do. Last thing, what do you want to plug? What's your message? What is your website? I'll put everything up on the screen, your social, lay it all out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it, Rob. And
happy to have you.
no, I appreciate it so much. And
You're classing the place up. I might not run this just because you're gonna make my reputation bad. Like, what's he getting smart, well-spoken people now?
Yeah, I know. I've got like my blazer on and everything. You become ungovernable. But I was listening to early 2000s rock when, you know, we got on the podcast. So anyway, oh, trust me, girls got some edge if we need some edge.
I believe it. I've known enough soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. But so I'm at it's my last name, so Etchison forcongress.com is my website. I am on all of the socials, but my handles is my first name though, so Shelane for Congress. So I have a very unique first name, and so I feel like, you know, we could just Shelane, you kind of get it, right? But Shelane for Congress on the socials, and I really appreciate it. And it was kind of like, you know, the message, like I said before, is really just encouraging people to be brave. Like, you don't owe anyone your vote. People ought to earn your vote. Don't let the fear mongering get to you. You know, so many people are registering. They're saying they're politically independent. Well, congratulations, at least for the people here in my district, you now have an independent on the ballot to choose. And so I'm available to them. I'm happy to answer questions and be as, you know, transparent and authentic as possible with really this journey and this run.
Well, like I said, sincerely, thank you. We're glad you're doing it. We can't endorse someone who's not a libertarian, but what I can say is all libertarians listening, go to the website. All of the links are on the screen and in the comments or in the description. Look at our issues, make the decision for yourself. I think it's pretty clear where you'll land. So thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing what you do. Maybe we'll have you back on either in October when it's heating up or later in November to say congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'd be glad to come back. Thank you so much for the time. And I want one of your shirts. I like them.
I can send you the website afterwards if you want.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, North Carolina, what up? We are back. It's Groo and Dub, and we have a lot to talk about. First and foremost, we want to say congratulations to the Christ the King 1A state champions.
Yes, yes, indeed.
That's for the girls soccer team. That's a huge win. Way to go. All the soccer moms across the North Carolina should be jealous, and they should congratulate the 1A state champions.
Yeah, they really should. They in fact also they drubbed them 5-0. Where the freshman here, she had a hat trick. And get this, she wasn't named the MVP. Brianna, and I hope I get this name right, Pachalski was named the MVP. And of course, with the score being 5-0, Elizabeth Davola, I got that right. She had a clean sheet. So, that was a drubbing put on by those girls.
Oh, it's a huge win, and we just want to congratulate the team and all the parents and all the supporters. I mean, this was a huge state win across the board. So, big shout out to Christ the King girls soccer 1A.
Yep, indeed.
So, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, staying in soccer, Charlotte FC didn't have such a good go up in where the Red Bulls play, and it was a 0-0 score at half, and they lost 3-1. So it was just bad all around. It dropped them to 7th in the conference standings, and because they lost by 2, that put them back in the negative goal differential at -1. So the only solace we can take out of that is they're still above the wild card line in terms of the playoffs. So, but still a lot of season to go, a lot of points still out there to get. And, the Panthers staying in Charlotte have been going through OTAs, and everybody's talking about how Bryce has bulked up.
Oh, he needs to, man, because he's getting his butt kicked.
Well, see, the one thing I got to give him credit for is even though he was the most sacked quarterback last year in the NFL, he didn't get hurt a whole lot. And that's a wonder in that aspect. But it almost sounds like a certain other North Carolinian who's the greatest of all time in basketball had to do when he was getting beat up in the NBA. And then after he learned to bulk up, he became that much better of a player. And hopefully Bryce has maybe not that great of a turnaround, but a
Jordan
good.
Is the GOAT. I don't care what you say, but he is the GOAT.
Yeah, and hopefully I'm not looking for a Michael Jordan type turnaround, but just a turnaround from a 2-15 season. Heck, if they go, 6-11, I'll be happy because that just shows progress. And that's all I ask for is progress.
Yeah.
Instead of regression.
Yeah, well, speaking of basketball, I just have 2 words. Dallas Mavericks. All the way.
I tell you what, they really did a masterclass against Minnesota, which it looks like Minnesota was built to beat Denver, but they weren't built to beat anybody else. It was just a bad matchup for Denver, but then when they ran into the Dallas buzzsaw, they got buzzed.
Right.
And I expected to be a good NBA Finals. And the bad part is, now you're a decent age, and you will remember this too. Whenever the last
conference, calling me old, man?
I'm not calling you old.
I heard that you snuck that in. You just called me old.
I'm calling you well experienced, just like me.
Okay.
So do you remember whenever the NBA Finals, and same for hockey, whenever the last conference final would wrap up, it would be 2 or 3 days, and then boom, you were right into the finals.
Right.
But nowadays they
like
have
a week or two off now, or what's going
they
on?
have a set date that the finals will start
Yeah.
regardless. And it's like, no, don't do
You know what
that.
that's all about. That's just paid programming. They want to get the commercials ready. They want,
Oh, and
that's
lather
just
the teams
marketing.
up and lather them up, talking back and forth. You can have only so many talking points in a
Yeah,
week.
they want to get all the interviews in. They need to get their 20-second commercials done. Get the halftime show going, all that kind of stuff. So
It's ridiculous. It's
what
like,
kind of
let's get
shirt
it
you
over
wearing?
with.
Is that a Hornet shirt?
Yes, it is a Hornet shirt. It's a Hornets DraftKings shirt.
Dude, it looks all crazy, man. Like, let's see it.
It's just the side profile of the Hornet with its basketball thorax.
Right.
And it's one of my favorite shirts. Just because this is my favorite part of the logo. It's actually the alternate logo, the side profile, but I think it's the better profile of the new
It looks
Hornets
good
logo.
on you, buddy. It looks
Yeah.
good on you.
And speaking of the Hornets, we mentioned last time that Miller got on the all rookie team, and he ended up getting a cake for his efforts, and he really didn't expect a cake. He was just, very grateful, and he's going to be a good star for the years to come. With Ball coming back next year, I really think the Hornets will make a push, to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I hope so. For North Carolina's sake, we need a win in this state. I was really having high hopes for the Canes, and what happened there. But now I'm pulling for Dallas. I want the Stars to go all the way. I would love to see a Florida-Dallas matchup in the Stanley Cup.
All Southern matchup.
Oh, I would love that with the Dallas.
Oh, that would just eat at the purest heart to be an all Southern matchup.
Oh, it truly would. And Dallas, now they have an uphill battle. They just got beat by Edmonton yesterday, and that bums me out because now they're down 3-2 in the series. So they cannot lose again if they want to make it. So
right. And Florida's up 3-2 with a chance to clinch. So we'll see.
Yeah, go Florida, because I really can't stand New York Rangers. You know that. Not a fan. And I would love to see Dallas pull it off somehow. They're going to need to get it together. So,
well, speaking of Dallas, now this is something that many people may not know that is getting underway this weekend. But the T20 Cricket World Cup is beginning in the suburb of Grand Prairie, Texas.
Wow, my dad used to live there. That's amazing.
And they have built a cricket stadium there, and they've built one in Nassau County, New York. Did you know there's a cricket stadium, or not a stadium, but it's a cricket pitch on Church Street down there in Morrisville?
In Morrisville?
Yeah, it's a beautiful pitch. I've been there myself to watch the Morrisville Cardinals and now the Morrisville Raptors, because the Cardinals owner got kicked out of minor league cricket, and then the new owners just replaced the old team. But it's a fun time. And if you've never been there, you need to go. It's just fun. And yes, there's a lot of South Asian diaspora there, but when they saw me and my cousin Jamie there, two country bumpkins from Caswell County watching a cricket match, they're like, how in the world did you guys find out about us? Because, we don't look exactly like, our skin's a little too light for that crowd. But they welcomed us with arms. And, it's a great time. And the thing is, I got into cricket, believe it or not, way back in 2009 in Mississippi. Now, that sounds weird, But at the time, I was living in an upstairs apartment, and my downstairs neighbors were Pakistani, and they taught me cricket. And when I finally learned what all the numbers mean, what all the positions mean, what the strategy was, it all made sense. I said, okay, I understand how baseball evolved from this sport. So, it's fun. And the thing is, the United States and the West Indies got picked to be co-hosts for the World Cup this year. They hold it every 2 years, as opposed to every 4 with the Soccer World Cup or Basketball World Cup. And, because of that, the USA, who hardly ever qualifies for the Cricket World Cup because, we haven't had a good cricket organization for like over 110 years, they got an automatic berth. But the funny thing is, last week they played a warm-up series versus Bangladesh and won the series. Bangladesh is a Class A side. They play the highest form of cricket, and we beat them 2-1 in the series.
Wow.
And
well,
that
the U.S.
had,
is on the up and up with cricket.
yeah, but here's the thing: if you looked at our lineup, you'd be like, "Who are all these people?" And a lot of them are immigrants.
Okay.
A lot of Indian, Pakistani, Sri Lankan, even there's a couple on there. There's one dude, I think, from South Africa or on the team, and one from New Zealand, but they're all Americanized now. And they play for the USA, and of course, a lot of them are from India. And but there's one purebred American on there. His name is Stephen Taylor. Just remember that name. And he grew up in Ohio, and he is probably the only true blood American on that team. But I believe, he's not the captain, but he's one of the main veterans on that team, and it would be nice for them to, win a couple games. I'm not picking them to win the cup, even though I have plus 75,000 on them to win it. In my betting apps, because I will not bet against the United States. And just a little
How dare you bet against the United States?
No, I'm not betting against the United States.
Oh, wow.
Put the money down for them. But the only option I had was
for who's going to win.
If the only option was for them to win the World Cup. It wasn't just win a round or go to the knockouts or anything like that. It was to win the whole darn thing. And so that's what I did.
Excellent.
So,
how are you doing though, man? How's work going and everything?
Everything's going wonderfully.
How are the cats? How are the cats doing?
They're doing well. What's funny?
Okay.
Ms. Nimbus decided one day this week she was going to be Ms. Houdini.
Oh, okay.
And I woke up one morning, I come into the den, and there's the other 2 cats. And then, wait a minute, what's this little fur ball running around? How did you get out? And what I found out she had done, I told you I'd stuffed towels in the bathroom door so she couldn't, sneak under the little gap of the bathroom door. Well, her little clever mind pulled one of the towels out, and she snuck under there. Then she snuck under the bedroom door and just got out, just la, 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 la. I'm walking around with the other 2. I'm like, no, this ain't going to happen, because I'm very slowly giving them exposure to the kitten. And really, it's more curiosity right now. And here's what's funny. It looks like
You're cutting out a little bit. I think your service is messed up.
never mind. I'll get it. Yeah. All right. You can.
There we go. You're back. Okay.
All right. Sorry about that. So anyway, she comes back in here, and I was like, no, you don't. And so I put her back in, restuffed the towels, and so far that's worked for the last couple days. But she's upgraded to meat now. Got her little cans of food.
Can you go grab her?
Can you stand by?
Yeah. We want to meet Miss Houdini.
Yeah, her name is Nimbus. Okay, stand by.
Nimbus, like Nimbus Stratozacet.
Yeah, Nimbus like the cloud.
Nimbus
So you'll see why.
Stratozacet. That's what I'm gonna call her. So I'm excited. I love it when Dub brings his cats on. Apparently, he's got a new addition to the family, a little kitten that we need to meet as well. So thank you everyone for sticking around for this moment. This is exciting. They call him Cat Daddy for a reason. What was that? Thumbs down. We got to do thumbs up. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Cat Daddy in the house. Okay, let's see. You're cutting out a little bit. Oh, is this Nimbus Stratozacet?
That is Nimbus.
Ha ha ha. Oh, she's adorable. Does she like being on screen more than the other ones?
Well, she's not fighting me. And Delote has jumped up here. Now I know
Hi,
that.
Nimbus.
There she goes. She knew something was going on. Hey.
Hi, Nimbus. How are you? Want to tell our
She
audience
know. You see
hello?
that look on her face?
Awesome. Thank you for bringing Nimbus on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And now she's purring. I'm rubbing her. But the two of them are just staring her down.
Oh, that was great. Our audience loves that. We're getting all kind of messages streaming in for this. Wow. People really, people love that. Yeah. We're going to have to bring Nimbus on every time. It looks like our audience is really loving this. So thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, y'all, just remember, please, this time of year with kittens being born, if you can't take care of them, take them to a good shelter or adopt them out to a loving family that you know. Just chuck them out the window.
Yeah, don't leave them on the side of the road, please. That is abuse. Find a good home for them. I think you're cutting out real bad. I don't know what's going on with your service, but maybe this is a good time to end it. Do you have any closing statements?
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe that I'm on the wall to tell. So anyway, I want to thank everybody again for watching us. Like I say, like we've always said, like, share, subscribe. You know, we won't steer you wrong here at Liberty Inc. No, we won't. So anyway, if you want to continue watching this wonderful content, it helps the algorithm so you can see us more and get notified when we come on, because we know you want to see us.
Yep. Donate to the LPNC if you can, even if it's 50 cents or $1. Please, if you like this content, help us keep it going. So again, thank you to everyone for watching and sticking around to the best part of this podcast. And we will say goodbye until next time.
Have a
Thank you
good one,
very much.
y'all.
Thank you.